Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public informational meeting for state project number 77-249, replacement of bridge number 4730 in the town of Mansfield, Connecticut. Project information below is the project email, phone line, and we encourage you to visit the project webpage. It's a quick overview on how to view captions and subtitles in Zoom. There's a caption button below, and you can select your speaking language. Closed captioning, including non-English translation options, are available on YouTube after the event. My name is Mark Burns, and I'm the project manager for the department's local bridge program. You can see my contact information on the right. Our meeting overview for the evening will be some general housekeeping, a formal presentation of the design, which will include explaining the existing conditions and define the purpose and need, as well as proposed recommendations for replacement. Following that, we'll have a live question and answer session. I'll read the slide regarding Title VI, Civil Rights. No person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. We highly encourage you to fill out the voluntary post-meeting survey located at the QR code and link below. There's also a slide to the department's Office of Equity regarding Title VI. A recording of this presentation will be posted to YouTube after the event, and closed captioning, including non-English translation options, are available on Zoom and YouTube. This is the department slide on Title VI, notice to the public. And the same slide, but in Spanish. In order to use the Zoom Q&A, there's a button below on the bottom of the window that will open a Q&A button, and then you can type your questions right in there, and one of the panelists will answer your question. If you're an audio-only participant, please dial *9 to raise and lower your hand. You can reach out to us by email at dot-flbp@ct.gov, by phone at 860-594-2020, which is a monitored voicemail line. And after the presentation, you can access us by Zoom Q&A chat, and the questions will be posted to the Zoom chat. Their comment period will be open until August 6th, 2024, but the Zoom Q&A is only open for today. Funding for this project is under the Federal Local Bridge Program's Design Managed by State, or DMS program. In the past, funding for these municipally owned structures was funded at an 80% federal and 20% town match for design, rights-of-way, and construction. Under DMS, design, rights-of-way, and construction phases are funded with a minimum of 80% federal and a maximum of 20% state funds. Design, rights-of-way, and construction phases are now at zero cost to the town. And even though the department is taking on the design on behalf of the town, it is still a full partnership, and we coordinate with the town at every milestone submission. The goals of the DMS were to provide a streamlined approach to design using our DOT resources, both in-house and consultant, to aid the towns in keeping bridges in a state of good repair by effective use of funds, to decrease our typical design time in the program from 60 months plus to 24 to 36 months, and when applicable, to utilize accelerated bridge construction or ABC techniques to shorten construction duration. I'll also introduce the project team. Our division chief is Bart Sweeney for the Division of Bridges. Derek Lassard is the principal engineer, the consultant liaison unit. As I said, I'm Mark Burns, supervising engineer, the project manager. Michelle Rain is project engineer on this project, and Zach Garino represents the Office of Rights-of-Way. Representing Clough Harbor and Associates, or CHA, is Anand Sasadri, project manager, and Tom Sawtell, project engineer. This slide shows some of the key structural elements of a typical bridge. The top is otherwise known as the deck, is the driving or traveling surface for vehicles, pedestrians, bicycles, protecting those vehicles from hazards or from the water is the parapet. Supporting the parapet and the deck is the bridge's superstructure. And as shown in this slide, the superstructure is steel beams. Supporting the entire superstructure is the abutments, or otherwise known as the substructure. Supporting the substructure will be a pile or spread footing. You will also occasionally see piers, depending on a pier, singular or plural, depending on the length of the span. And there are also wing walls for earth retention. Bridges are also rated on a scale of 1 to 9, with 9 being in excellent condition and 1 being an imminent failure. But despite these ratings, bridges are inspected on a biennial basis by our bridge safety unit, and if there are any immediate concerns, they would alert the town to take the necessary precautions. This slide shows some examples of concrete deterioration. Efflorescence on the top left is a chemical reaction where you'll see the salts or some of the other chemicals within the concrete start to come out of onto the surface of the concrete, creating that white substance. Honeycombing is a result of poor formwork. So when concrete is poured and it's not poured uniformly and the forms are removed, you'll see holes as shown there. Scaling is as a result of concrete that has cured on the top before the bottom, before the underlying surface, resulting in the cracking shown there. Map cracking is a result of freeze-thaw cycles, which causes the surface crack shown there. And a more severe condition of cracking is spalling, when the concrete has deteriorated so far into the reinforcing steel. I'll now turn over to Assistant Director of Public Works and Town Engineer, Derek Dillage, for some remarks.
Good evening, everyone, and thank everybody for attending tonight's meeting and the first of many steps as this proceeds forward with design. This, as a reminder, is we recently adopted in the town of Mansfield a master plan for pedestrian and bicyclists. In this roadway provides an east to west connection from Route 275 all the way to Route 89. So you'll see some of the decisions made in here that kind of reflect the master plan approved earlier this year by the town council. We look forward to receiving feedback, and please stop by our office and we can share with the DOT, and please use the DOT's comment response as well. Thank you, everybody, for the evening.
Thank you, Derek. I will now turn over to Tom Sawtell for the formal presentation. Tom?
Thank you very much, Mark, for the introduction. My name is Thomas Sawtell. I'm the project engineer from CHA. I'm giving tonight's technical portion of the presentation. I just want to say I'm really excited to present tonight. I am a Mansfield resident, and I graduated E.O. Smith in 2015, and I'm a UConn alumni graduating in 2019. So this is the replacement bridge number 4730 in Mansfield. So to start off, just a project location map, keying everybody in where this bridge is located in Mansfield. The orange is highlighting where bridge number 4730 is located along Gurleyville Road. Conveys bidirectional traffic in west to east direction over the Fenton River. And the Fenton River, as you can see highlighted in blue, runs from north to south, or top of the page to bottom of the page, as you're seeing here on the screen. So Bridge 4730, it is located 1.3 miles to the east of the University of Connecticut and Route 195. And it's also located approximately a quarter mile to the west of the intersection with Codfish Falls and Chafeeville Road. I also want to point out that around the bridge and surrounding project site, there's a couple of features that I'm going to mention in tonight's presentation. To the northwest, we've got the Nipmuc Trailhead entrance. To the northeast is the Gurleyville Cemetery, and to the southwest is the Torrey Preserve Park entrance. So Gurleyville Road carries 2 travel lanes, and it has a width out there today of 23 feet 7 inches. That's the first issue that I want to point out with the bridge and the road today. The 23'7" width is less than state and federal standards, which specify that you need to have a minimum roadway width of 24 feet. The average daily traffic over the road is 1,022 vehicles, and that was based on traffic counts that were performed in August of 2023. From those counts, we figured out that the 85th percentile speed over the road is 39 miles an hour. And the speed limit on the road today is 40 miles an hour. And I'll mention that that's the design speed that we selected during the preliminary design of this project. The roadway classification of Gurleyville Road is a rural minor collector. The photo on your screen is just a shot of Gurleyville Road looking over the bridge to the east towards the intersection with Chaffeeville and Codfish Falls. So speaking to the existing bridge itself, it was constructed originally in 1970, making it 54 years old today. The bridge had one rehabilitation to date in 1988, which consisted of some superstructure and substructure repairs. The main improvement was that the northeast wing wall was reconstructed as part of this project. The bridge type is a single span structure with a span length of 41 feet 9 inches. And the bridge components consist of a superstructure of 21-inch deep pre-stressed deck units, substructure that's masonry abutments and concrete bridge seats, and a foundation that's unknown due to the lack of as-built plans. It's likely that it's founded on masonry. So speaking to the hydraulics of this project site, the bridge today is inadequate for the 100-year design storm. The clear span of the bridge, which as you can see in this schematic here that I've marked up, it's defined as the distance between the faces of the existing abutments, as I'm showing in this white arrow in the photo, is 38 foot 6 inches, which is less than 49.8 feet needed to achieve a 1.2 times bank full width. The next issue with the hydraulics is the backwater. And so the backwater is defined as the difference between the upstream water surface elevation in the natural condition with the bridge removed versus the water surface elevation with the bridge in place as it sits today. And today that's 1.7 feet of backwater, which is greater than the 1 foot maximum standards. The next criteria that's substandard is the underclearance of the bridge. So the underclearance is defined as the distance between the upstream water surface elevation for the 100-year storm to the low chord of the bridge, or in this case, the low point of the pre-stressed deck unit superstructure. And today that's only 1/10 of a foot, which is well less than the 2 foot minimum for the standards. The last thing is the freeboard. So there's an existing low point along Gurleyville Road located further to the east that today, when you have a 100-year storm, the water is actually overtopping the road by about 1/2 foot. And that's significantly less than a 1 foot minimum standard that we like to try to achieve. So the third thing that I want to point out as well is, even though you can't see it in the photos, you've got a footing that supports the abutments of the bridge. And based on a scour analysis that was performed as part of our study, the bridge is indeed scour critical because the scour depths are presumed to be lower than the bottom of the footing of the bridge. So the bridge was last inspected on March 9th of 2022. And from that inspection report, the deck was rated in a satisfactory condition. The superstructure was rated in a fair condition. The substructure is in a good condition. The approach is in a good condition. And the channel and channel protection along the stream embankment within the limits of the bridge is in a good condition. The other thing I want to point out is the bridge railing is in poor condition, and the system does not meet current safety standards. Additionally, out there today, as you'll see in some photos in later slides, there's no approach guide rail systems at all four corners of the bridge. And that's another feature that doesn't meet current safety standards. So the department performed a load rating of the existing bridge in February of 2022 to determine the structural capacity of the bridge. And as part of that rating, what they found was the inventory HL 93 design load rating rates a 0.96, which is less than the 1.0. So it's a substandard condition. That's another thing that I just want to point out with the bridge that's a deficiency. Now, as part of that rating, they also rate the AASHTO and Connecticut illegal loads, and all of those are above a 1.0 rating factor. And because of that, the bridge is not posted for any weight restrictions at this time. So the next few slides that I'm going to go through are some photos of the existing bridge and surrounding project site features. In the top left, we've got the south outlet elevation of the bridge. The top right is the north inlet elevation of the bridge. The bottom left is a view of Gurleyville Road looking east off the bridge. And I'll just point and note that we've got the Gurleyville Cemetery located to the northeast here in this photo. And then the bottom right photo is Gurleyville Road looking west. And note that the Torrey Preserve is here as well. In the top left is looking east over the bridge. Note the Nipmuc Trailhead is located to the northwest. And there's a driveway entrance, which is 266 Gurleyville Road to the southwest of the bridge here. The top right photo is looking west over the bridge. I'm just going to point out that there are overhead aerial utilities which cross the bridge today. The bottom left photo is the bituminous concrete overlay, just showing over the bridge deck. It's in pretty nice shape with the exception of a couple of transverse cracks that I've pointed out near the ends of the bridge deck. The bottom right photo is just looking at the substandard bridge rail system. This is the north side of the bridge, but the south side is in a similar shape. The top left photo is the underside of the pre-stressed concrete beams. Again, this is looking underneath the bridge if you're standing in the water. The top right is a close-up of the north and south fascia deck units. And I just want to note that there's shallow exposed reinforcement along both of these fascia, and also evidence of active leakage with some efflorescence shown in these photos as well. The bottom left and bottom right photos just show the east and west masonry abutments respectively. The top left is a shot of the Fenton River looking upstream from the bridge. And the top right is a shot of the Fenton River looking downstream from the bridge. And the bottom left and bottom right photos show the existing closed drainage systems that exist to the northeast of the bridge site. The bottom right photo here, I'm just pointing out where the drainage outlets today near the existing northeast wing wall of the bridge. So based upon the deficiencies that I've noted previously in the presentation, the project's purpose and need is to address those deficiencies. So we want to increase, obviously, the load carrying capacity of the bridge to meet all current standards. We also want to increase the roadway width to a 24-foot minimum to meet state and federal standards. Also, in consultation with the town early on with this project, we want to provide 5-foot minimum bicycle and pedestrian lanes on both the eastbound and westbound lanes over the bridge. We also want to eliminate the scour deficiency that currently exists out there today. We want to replace the bridge rail and approach systems to meet current safety standards. We want to make improvements to the hydraulic performance of the bridge. And then finally, just as a reminder, the bridge is 54 years old today and nearing the end of its service life. So because of these reasons, we're going with a full bridge replacement as part of this project. I also want to just point out that, as Mark mentioned, since these bridges are inspected regularly by Connecticut DOT, the bridge is still safe for the traveling public to travel on. So for this new project, we're going to be replacing the existing bridge with a brand new pre-stressed concrete deck unit bridge. With that new bridge, we're going to be able to carry all of the AASHTO legal and permit vehicles over the bridge. It's also going to allow for us to accommodate a 30-foot wide roadway width with dedicated 5-foot minimum pedestrian bicycle lanes. We're going to have a new foundation that will also be designed for scour at the site. And with this new bridge, we're anticipating to get a 75-year service life and minimal future maintenance needs. Also, with the new bridge, we're going to have new bridge rails and approach rail systems that meet current safety standards. With the new bridge, we can also make some significant improvements to the hydraulics at the site. We're going to be widening the clear span of the bridge out to 50 feet. That will meet the 1.2 times bank full width of the channel. We're also going to be improving the hydraulic underclearance to 1.1 feet. Today, it's only 1/10 of a foot. We're also going to make an improvement to the freeboard. It's going to be right at 0 feet for the 100-year storm. So what that will do is it'll eliminate the roadway overtopping condition to the east of the bridge. We're also going to improve and reduce the backwater elevation to 1.2 feet from the 1.7 feet that's existing out there today. Finally, with the new bridge, we're going to improve the aesthetics of the bridge. Mainly, we're going to be providing some form liner that'll simulate stone masonry along the exposed features of the wing walls and end blocks of the bridge, similar to what I'm showing in the example photo in the top right of the screen. Also, we're going to be metallizing the bridge rail to a color of the town's choice. I'm showing a black metallized 3-tube bridge rail in the bottom right photo, just as an example. So here's a cross section of the proposed bridge. This is looking east. So I'll point out that we've got the 30-foot wide curb-to-curb roadway width that will accommodate 2 10-foot wide travel lanes and 2 5-foot widened bicycle/pedestrian travel ways. And the superstructure, like I mentioned, it's going to consist of a 6-inch thick concrete deck and 1 foot 6-inch thick pre-stressed concrete deck units. Here is a south elevation of the proposed bridge. So here's the 53-foot 9-inch widened span, which will give us a 50-foot wide clear span between the faces of the abutments. And the way that we're doing that is the new abutments are going to be built behind the existing abutments and wing walls that'll be removed during construction. The other things I want to point out is that we've got the improved aesthetics, the 3-tube curb-mounted open bridge rail, and simulated stone masonry on the exposed portions of the wing walls and end blocks. The last thing I'll point out in this elevation is that we've got a drilled shaft foundation type that'll be socketed in a bedrock and designed for scour. So here's a plan view of the proposed bridge. The limits of the proposed bridge are shown in orange. And just to orient everybody along Gurleyville Road, we're looking from west to east. So with the new bridge, as I mentioned, we've got the 53-foot 9 widened span that will provide a 50-foot clear span underneath the bridge. And the abutments are getting shifted back, to the west and to the east to accommodate this widening of the span. And then the bridge is also getting widened across the roadway width to accommodate the two 10-foot travel lanes and two 5-foot shoulders. We've also got U-shaped wing walls at all four corners of the bridge to retain fills, as well as guide rail systems at all four corners of the bridge that will meet current safety standards. So this is a proposed roadway showing the full project limits. The yellow portion of this map, again, orient everybody from west to east. The yellow portion is showing the proposed approach roadway reconstruction. There's roughly 300 feet of roadway reconstruction to the west of the bridge and 300 feet to the east, making the total project limits 650 feet, including the limits of the bridge, as shown here in orange. The other things I want to point out on this plan are that we are proposing to reconstruct some of the driveways within the project limits, and I'm showing those highlighted in the magenta/purple color here. And the last thing that I want to mention is that we're reestablishing the existing parking pull-off to the south east of the bridge here. It's shown in this dark gray hatch. It's roughly 100 feet long by, I believe it's 8 feet wide. It's a little difficult to see here with the dimension in the photo, but we're reestablishing that just because we know the site's significant to people who want to fish or hike or, use the site for outdoor recreational activities. So here's the proposed roadway profile along Gurleyville Road. Again, we've got the bridge limits in orange, and the green is showing that we're filling and raising the profile up at both approaches to the bridge between 1 to 2 feet, mainly for hydraulics reasons, but also to improve some of the vertical geometry and curvature of Gurleyville Road. So for construction of the new bridge, we're going with a full closure and detour of Bridge 4730. I've got it highlighted here on this image in orange, and the detour route is 8.7 miles long using a combination of town and state roadways. It uses Chaffeeville Road, a portion of Route 195, and then a small portion of Gurleyville Road between 195 and the project site to the east. We're anticipating that the construction is going to be for one season or approximately 8 months when the detour will be in effect. So finally, the impacts with this project site. In terms of the utilities, as I mentioned, we've got overhead utilities as shown in the bottom right photo here over the bridge today. Eversource has a project in 2025 that will relocate the utilities to the south within the town right away. So the utilities won't become a concern when the project goes into construction. For environmental impacts, of course, we're going to have some tree clearings along the roadway within town right away. We're going to have some temporary and permanent wetland and watercourse impacts, of course, working in the channel and around the existing and proposed bridge abutments and wing walls. We're going to be performing best management practices, of course, for the fish and wildlife, given that this is a very sensitive site. And as I mentioned, we're going to be reestablishing a pull-off parking area for fishing and recreational activities as part of this project. For historical impacts, we're not anticipating any historical impacts. A phase 1 archaeological investigation on this project has been initiated at this time. For permits on the project, we're going to need a Town of Mansfield inland wetland permit, a deep flood management certification, and an Army Corps self-verification. So in terms of rights-of-way impacts for the project, I'm showing right now the existing right-of-way lines in red on this schematic here. The property to the northeast we're gonna need a temporary construction easement as well as a drainage right-of-way easement for the newly reconstructed drainage to the northeast of the bridge. The property to the northwest, we're just going to need a small temporary construction easement. And then on the south side, we're going to need some rights to reconstruct driveway and rights to grade for, the driveway apron that we'd like to reconstruct, along with some of the sloping that we're going to be performing for the processed aggregate pull-off parking pad to the southeast. And I'm going to pass this off to Zach, who's going to explain the rights of way process.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zachary Garino, and I'm a project coordinator with the Department's Division of Rights of Way. Our office is responsible for acquiring the property rights that are needed for transportation projects. As Tom mentioned in the presentation, this project will require the acquisition of property rights, so I'd like to give a brief overview of our acquisition process. Before I begin, I'd like to mention that the specific impacts are still being finalized and they may change as the design progresses, and that any required property rights will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statute Sections 13A 73 and 13A 98E, as well as the Uniform Act. And change the slide. So the right-of-way acquisition process begins once the design has progressed to a development milestone and all of the impacts have been determined. At this point, each affected property owner will receive a formal letter of intent to acquire from our office, along with a property map which depicts the exact property rights to be acquired. And on the screen here is an example of a property map that an owner may receive. It shows the existing conditions as well as the proposed. So next, our office will determine the fair market value of those property rights, which were used to actually go back a slide. We'll use that property map to establish an offer of just compensation, and that offer will be sent out to the property owner in writing, and a right-of-way agent will be available to meet with the property owner and explain the project, go over specific impacts to their property, and explain how the state arrived at its offer. The property owner will be given a reasonable amount of time, typically 30 days, to consider the state's offer and enter into negotiations. When an agreement is reached, the department will prepare all the necessary paperwork to record the deed and property map on the town land records. However, if agreement cannot be reached, in order to keep on schedule, the department may acquire the necessary property rights to its power of eminent domain. In that event, the state files a notice of condemnation in the Superior Court, along with a monetary deposit in the amount of the state's offer. The owner would have 6 months from that date to file an appeal if they felt that the state's offer was inadequate. Whether or not the owner chooses to appeal, the money deposited in the court is available to be withdrawn by the owner. And it's important to note that the state only acquires property rights that are actually needed for this specific project. If there are any questions regarding the right-of-way acquisition process, I can answer them after the presentation. With that, I'll turn it back over to Tom to conclude. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. So for this project, the schedule for construction, we're anticipating to start in the spring of 2027. And that's subject to right-of-way and permit approvals, of course, with the project. For construction, as I mentioned, it's going to be 1 season or 8 months. That's what we're anticipating. And the construction cost on this project is estimated at $4.75 million. And that's going to comprise of 80% federal funds and 20% state funds. So it's important to point out that this project is no cost to the town. Thank you very much. This concludes the technical portion of the presentation. I'm going to pass this over to Mark and Michelle for the live Q&A answer session.
Thanks, Deb. Great job, everyone. So we're going to move on to the live question and answer section of this presentation. You can email us at dot-flbp@ct.gov and shoot us your questions that way, or you can call us at phone 860-594-2020 and leave us a voicemail, or by chat during our live Q&A. We currently have one question, which I'll get to now. We have one question. Traveling east is very easy to exceed the speed limit when you approach Gurleyville, and is also true traveling west, and has resulted in at least one fatality on the curve as you approach the hill heading west. What traffic calming devices are you proposing? They talk about their dislike about speed bumps, but suspect that a number of them might be necessary.
Tom or Jeff, do you want to take that question?
Sure, Mark, I can take that question. Well, one of the things that we're doing here is we're maintaining kind of a minimum traveling width, and that in itself tends to calm traffic down. If you go with a standard 12-foot wide travel lane, vehicles tend to travel a lot faster. So that's really one of the main things that we're doing here to control the speeds, because we do know they are a little bit faster than probably what the road was intended for. I guess in terms of safety, one of the other things we're doing is providing the wider shoulder, which is going to help with, I guess, folks that are either pulling over in the pull-off with their vehicles. It's going to allow them a little safer area to pull back out into traffic. Really, I guess it comes down to a lot of times an enforcement issue when vehicles are traveling faster on some of these local rural roads, which you tend to see quite frequently.
Thanks, Jeff. We don't have any questions at this time, but we will give it a few more minutes to see if anybody else has any other questions. Again, you can shoot your questions through dot.flbp@ct.gov or by phone at 594-2020 and leave us a voicemail. The comment period is open through August 6th. So if you can't think of anything tonight, you have until August 6th to get your questions to us through any of those avenues, email or phone. I did just get another question. It says there are no traffic lights at I-95, which is Schaeferville, or at Codfish Falls, Route 44. An increase in traffic at these intersections would significantly impact traffic flows. What is being done to address that? And then it also says Codfish Falls is in dire condition and would likely be problematic.
I guess I can, I'll take this one again. In terms of the detour and where traffic is being sent, this actually hasn't been designed yet. So when it does go into design, the designer is going to look at the detour routes. They will evaluate the roads that are going to be used for the detour. And if they see any issues, those can be addressed if that particular roadway still needs to be used as the detour. One of the other things that can be used is regional signing, which takes travelers a little bit away from the project site, so that they're not going close to the project site and concentrating traffic on some of these local roads that can't manage that type of traffic. So that's a great question. And things like that will be considered as the traffic detour gets designed.
Thanks, Jeff. We have another question in regards to the traffic count. Somebody asked, in regards to the traffic count, they think that it may underestimate the true count since it was done when UConn was on summer break. Do you think that this will affect your planning?
Sorry about that. I have my mute on. I don't think it will, because we do have other traffic counts that the town took at a different time, and it does coincide. They both coincide together in terms of what we're seeing for magnitude of traffic. Doesn't mean that counts can't be taken again. When this thing goes to design, if we feel that they're underestimated, we can take some more traffic counts at a different time. Another great question.
Thanks again, Jeff. We have another question. What is being done to address emergency vehicle response times with this long detour?
Yeah, that's something that gets, I guess, coordinated during the design process fairly early, because we understand anytime you have a detour, there's going to have to be some kind of a mutual aid between emergency services located at either different parts of the town, or sometimes other towns can be put on kind of on call as mutual aid. So those things definitely get ironed out. There's a lot of coordination with the police, local fire, and local emergency services.
So we have a comment in regards to the first question. They'd like to go back to the first question, because you had mentioned that the state leaves it up to local enforcement. In regards to the question about the speed limit and the approach to Gurleyville Road, and calming devices that you're proposing for reducing the speed limit kind of in that area. And so they would like a little more clarification on how that's going to be reduced, and how the roadway is going to be taken care of there.
Well, I can follow up a little bit, but I might ask somebody else to kind of back me up on this. With these bridge projects, we concentrate on the bridge, and we understand that there are roadway improvements that have to be done in order to get this bridge replaced. Drainage is one of them. If we see any safety issues, we definitely have to address those with guide rail. Unfortunately, a lot of it does come down to enforcement issues. Being a collector road, there are things like speed bumps that you can't use on this type of roadway. If this is a major issue, and it sounds like at least one person thinks it's a major issue, this is something that can be taken into consideration during design. At this level, we're coming up with big concept things that get the project going. So if the speeds do seem to be a major issue, and there's a major call for that, then something can be addressed during design. I hate to say that, it sounds like I'm pushing it off, but at this level, we're just not looking at that level of detail. But it can be considered later on during design. Anand, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I wanted to add was that the project design was based on a certain design speed, right, Jeff? And then that design speed for this project was, I think, based on the 85th percentile speed, and that was 40 miles per hour.
Yep.
So the design is based on a certain design speed that's based on information collected as part of the project. And so if people are continuing to speed much higher than that, yes, unfortunately, it does become an local enforcement issue.
Yeah. To add to that, yes, as the department's stance on these situations is that it is a local enforcement. We have to design to the design speed criteria based on applicable state and federal policies, but post-construction, that's enforcement's responsibility of the town. But there are traffic measures that the town can take, whether it be flashing speed zone cameras, stationing a police officer there for speeding for a short duration, things of that nature.
This is Tom Sawtell as well. Just want to add and reiterate that with the new bridge, we're adding brand new crash tested safety features at all four corners of the bridge, as well as a brand new bridge rail that meets current safety standards. So from that perspective as well, we're making the site significantly safer for the traveling public. And just one clarification I also want to add here. The speed limit over the bridge today is 30 miles an hour, and east of the project, it is posted for 25 miles an hour as you get closer to the intersection with Codfish Falls and Chaffeeville. It's also a scenic road, and I know the town has mentioned that in our prior conversations with them throughout this design process.
And I think maybe Quentin is kind of alluding to we do have a trail crossing there, and maybe that's a concern of having pedestrians crossing really in proximity to the bridge. Maybe that's some of the concerns that are being raised there. I don't want to speak for him, but I know that's definitely one of the concerns.
Well, that's a great question. We actually have a project in Eastford where we do have a trail similar to this crossing the road. And right now in that particular project, we are considering putting a crosswalk. So, you know, that's something that can be put on the pavement. It's visual for the drivers. It tends to slow them down. So that's something that can be considered in this area as well.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to move on to the next question. So we have, given the long construction time, can one lane be left open during construction?
So maybe I'll start with this, and Jeff, you can add. I think we looked at a couple of different alternates. We even looked at the fact that could we leave the existing bridge crossing open and sort of build a new bridge further to the north. But again, I think that would have meant a significant alignment shift. And then as you build a new bridge to the north, the problem is that you are impacting sensitive properties both at the northeast and northwest corners. You have a cemetery, and you have some historic properties at the northeast. So that was one of the reasons why we sort of didn't look at keeping the existing bridge open while constructing a new bridge to the north. Likewise, on the south side, I think we were concerned with significant environmental impacts. And so because of those reasons, we felt like this was sort of the best way to get the construction done quickly. A detour will result in the fact that the whole area is now available for the contractor to do this construction quickly, and it provides for a safer work zone for both the contractor and the traveling public.
Yeah, and I'll just add one more thing. The construction duration is 8 months, but there's a startup and then kind of a closeout. And typically the detour is not in place the day that the contractor starts and the day that the contractor finishes. So the detour will not be in place for the full 8 months. It will be less than that.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen. I have more of a comment than a question. It says, since this is a prime location for a recreational use of the river, I believe that the abutments should be aesthetically treated in the same manner proposed as the wing walls to improve the recreational experience.
This is Anand again from CHA. So right now, as we had shown in the plans, our plans were to have that form liner which simulates stone masonry only at the exposed portions, basically the wing walls. But we can definitely consider adding a form liner treatment on the face of the abutment if that's what the town wishes from an aesthetic perspective.
Okay, that's currently all I have for listed questions right now. Oh, I have something else coming up. Let me see. It is from Quentin. He said, I am happy to have Derek speak for me, as I see though you are widening the road bed of the bridge, and I, for one, am likely to take advantage of it speed-wise. Lines on the bridge to narrow the lanes will not be effective as a safety measure.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it means to have Derek speak for them. Is it? I mean, I can answer this. I'm going to respectfully. I'm just going to respectfully disagree. It has been proven that line striping and channelizing traffic does slow traffic down. I mean, that's a standard practice for traffic calming. That's kind of a simple measure to do that without introducing any kind of a detailed element like a speed hump. Mark, did you want to say something?
So what I will say is, for the requirements of the federal and state dollars, we can't use speed bumps or any sort of roadway altering devices at this time. If post-construction, the town feels that there's an increase in speeding, excessive speeding and whatnot, the town can explore other options post-construction. So enforcement can be more than just a speed camera, a police officer. If they want to investigate additional measures, that's at their discretion once the project's completed.
Okay, I do have another comment. It says, I have seen numerous cars parked between the road and the cemetery, especially during fishing season. Can parking provisions be made also on the north side east of the bridge, or work with the town to establish a parking area accessed by the driveway so the roadway does not appear visually wider and encourage higher speed?
Jeff, would you like to expand? I know we are providing a parking area at the south east corner, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that seemed to be the right space from a right-of-way perspective. We have a cemetery on the north. Would you want to expand on the fact that why we don't want to do it on the northeast side?
Yeah, I think, well, obviously the cemetery has a I guess a potential to get some impacts, because if we have to put a level landing in for that parking area, it might push the slopes out a little bit. But I think one of the key things where the parking area is now, there's better sight distance over the bridge, and that's one of the key elements where it's located. So drivers that are parked in that parking area that want to pull back out into the roadway are going to be looking to the west, and they have a really good clear shot over the bridge and down the road on the west side of the bridge. If that parking area was on the other side of the road, the sight line is not as good looking over the bridge. You can't see as far. So that's really one key component of that. Is there more to the question?
Yeah, I think that they're saying, so they're wanting to not have the roadway appear visually wider, so that way it doesn't encourage speed.
Yeah, so the surface of the parking area is going to be gravel. So when you're driving down the road, the width of the pavement is not going to change when you get to that parking area. So it will not look wider at that point. If that answers the question.
I posted it in the chat so you could read it again if that helps you.
Yeah.
So this seems like Michelle, did you want to read off the question first?
Yeah, so we did get another one. So Gurleyville Road has been on the list to be paved for several years. Is this paving to be coordinated with the bridge construction so the newly paved road is not damaged?
Yes, that's correct. This section of Gurleyville Road, as well as to the east, is within our 5-year plan. So we are coordinating this construction season with that associated resurfacing of the sections of roadway. It may give us opportunities to, if it's not within the bridge corridor, to incorporate some traffic calming on either end of it, especially as the speed limit does drop down to 25 beyond the project area. So that's definitely an opportunity for the town to pursue. And as we move forward with the design with this project team, we can at least address or confirm which direction various bridge components will be arriving from, such that if the bulk of them are coming from one direction, perhaps we can resurface one section or another section before then.
Thank you. I have no more questions at the moment.
Thanks for voting. Here's the leaderboard.
I will give it a minute. Until then, I will just remind everybody that the comment period is opened through August 6th. You can send your questions or comments to our email at dot-flbp@ct.gov or by phone, leaving us a voicemail at 860-594-2020. I will leave the comment period, our live Q&A open for another minute or so for anybody who wants to ask a question with our panelists right now. I'm also going to post a link in the chat to our voluntary survey. If you would fill that out after this presentation, that greatly helps us with our future presentations. I will do that now too. I did get one more question or comment. I do appreciate that the bridge alignment remains about the same, a good safety measure.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment.
Okay, I think that about wraps that up for tonight. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for, you guys all did a great job. I hope you all have a great evening and thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.